Namaste, namaskaram. Let's journey on to Montauk, shall we? This is chapter 2, a question of ownership. Neither Preston nor I were going to let the Montauk investigation slide. After our recent discoveries, we soon returned to Montauk and followed the dirt road to the Cardian radar installation. Approaching from the west, we saw a man in a parked truck adjacent to the radar dish, apparently serving as a guard of some sort. He saw us approaching and told us the area was off limits. He was not unfriendly. Preston and I turned around and headed back. As we walked back to the car, I pointed to a dirt path that led to the top of the bunker near the radar and asked Preston if he would show me around. After proceeding up a hill and through some bushes, we were surprised to find ourselves just north of the radar and actually too close for comfort. The man was now out of his truck and approaching us. There was no intention to hassle him on our part, but he had already seen us and was angry. Preston was video recording the entire scene, which obviously angered the man even more. "I told you guys to get off the property," he said. Preston continued to shoot him on video, and the man told him to stop. "It's public property," Preston said. "I don't like being on video. Now get out of here or I'll call the police," the man said. His anger was increasing. "Go ahead," said Preston. "We could use that to show harassment." "What do you mean harassment?" he said. The man seemed genuinely puzzled. I then informed the man that this is state property. "Not this part," he said. "It's private." It sounded like a poor bluff to me, and I insisted that it was state property. Preston then asked him if he could demarcate exactly where the private property began and the state park land ended. This was the final straw. He turned around as if he was defeated and would resort to being a tattletale. In fact, it reminded me of someone running home to mama. This is all the more ironic if you consider that the man was big, muscular, and wasn't about to be thrown about by anyone. As we had no wish for a further confrontation, we immediately returned down the path from which we came. In less than a few minutes, we were at the bottom of the hill. Suddenly, a state park police car made its way toward the Cardian site, but didn't see us. As we returned to our car, I noticed a hidden meadow, inaccessible by roads. It looked like a perfect place for occult gatherings, so I wanted to check it out and see if there was any evidence of such. It was awkward to get to, as there was plenty of brambles and bushes between the meadow and the main road. I made my way to the meadow, but Preston didn't want to fight with the bushes and stayed behind. Pussy. While Preston waited, he was no more than 50 yards away from the Cardian radar. He couldn't see them, but he heard the guards screaming at the police and telling them to arrest us. The police first wanted to know if we had disturbed the radar or the installation in any way. When informed that we had not, the police declined to take any action against us as we had not done anything wrong according to the law. The argument continued but went nowhere. I returned from the meadow and we went back to the car without any hassle. Upon our return, Preston showed the tape to his friend Danny. Surprisingly, Danny recognized the man who had been guarding the radar. His name was John Zacher, an employee of Brookhaven National Laboratory, who was at one time the head microwave technician. He was subsequently promoted to security, and that perhaps explains his presence at Montauk. Danny had also employed the man in his own business at one time. After this incident, Danny called John but didn't hear back for 6 months. Finally, John got hold of him and was surprised that Danny had seen him in a video out at Montauk. He had no recollection of being there. Danny also reported that someone else had seen John Zacher at a restaurant out at Montauk. In that particular instance, Zacher didn't recognize the man and was nasty. He was reportedly eager to see the tape but left town, and as of this writing, has not had the opportunity to see it. We have all wondered, where did he go? After our initial encounter with John Zacher, Preston and I stopped by a real estate office to see Carol Brady. She was mentioned in Montauk Revisited as having been very friendly to both of us and had helped introduce us to some local people. She had seen a stealth hovering. She had seen a stealth hovering over the base once and said the radar was still active. She knew something was going on at the base. We went in the office and asked for her, but were told she was on a leave of absence. The woman at the desk knew who we were, although I didn't remember her at all. After exchanging some small talk, we mentioned our encounter with John Zacker. The woman then said the feds owned the property and that they hadn't officially turned it over to the state. We corrected the woman, and she became argumentative on that point. This was surprising. I told her to look at the tax map. She had one in the real estate office and got it out. We looked it up on the map, and sure enough, Camp Hero was listed as New York State property. That's what I said, she said angrily. It's government property, New York State government property. Her demeanor was so overbearing that I backed off. I did express my curiosity as to why there would be so much confusion over the property issue. She was obviously getting more irritated by our presence.
Go ask George Larson, she said. He'll tell you.
I then politely explained that we really couldn't trust him to tell us the truth because he was the superintendent of the state park and was likely to be involved in any conspiracy. Besides, he had told us the base was being demolished and was off limits. A month later, Cardian was discovered putting up a new gate on the base. How does a radar company become a demolition crew? By microwaving the buildings? The woman said that if we didn't believe George Larson, then we should go ask some other man. She mentioned a specific name, but I don't remember what it was. I wondered aloud how I could be sure that man would tell us the truth. She then piqued her anger and said in a very huffy voice,
Then go ask somebody else. They'll tell you the truth.
We left quickly, but we were amazed at the lady's reaction. Obviously, we were a threat to her reality, but she seemed to know more than she was saying. This would not be the only time we would hear the federal government own the land at Camp Hero. A few months later, we would discover a newspaper article that would indicate that Carol Brady's van had been torched outside of Gurney's Inn of Montauk. This occurred within 1 month of the release of Montauk Revisited, wherein Carol Brady's name was mentioned. She subsequently went to work at another location. We don't know the full circumstances and have not sought her out for her own protection. We have heard other stories of cars being torched at Montauk to serve as a warning. As Preston and I drove home, we discussed the strange encounter at the real estate office. Why was the lady so adamant that the feds owned the property? And then, why did she change her tune and get so bent out of shape? The subject of who owned the land was obviously a hot topic. She probably knew a lot more than she told us and likely let something slip. Preston said that this was not the first time he had been reminded that the feds owned the property. He was talking about a court case that was held on June 16, 1993. To begin to understand the confusion of ownership concerning Montauk's Camp Hero, we will examine that court case at another time. I have to go get Lovey her hot chocolate. Namaste, namaskaram.